Hi, everybody, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 13 of our Back to Life podcast, where today's guest is Martha Boston. You know, on this podcast, I look to bring you guests that are going to inspire you through their insight or through their stories and give you some ideas and some encouragement so that each day when we come back to life, we can continue to create really good things in our life and move through the difficult times. You'll want to listen when I ask Martha, why is heart at the core of her approach in working with leaders and developing people? And she talks about, when I work with leaders, I'm talking about people who lead themselves first, and then leaders in terms of people that lead others. Very important to lead ourselves first. She has a great quote where she says, heart is the place from which life is led. You'll want to listen to that and see how it relates to you. She talks about how our heart, this notion of heart, when she describes it, is really connected and very, very needed and vital to when we set goals and visions for ourselves and our teams. She talks about sometimes how that process is not done maybe exactly how it could be done to bring the most power. And then she tells a really cool story about a woman who was steering a sailboat. Martha used to do a lot of leadership workshops on sailboats, if you can imagine that. And the breakthrough that this woman had just from steering a sailboat pointed at a small island in the distance, the breakthrough that she had as it related to her life. So sit back, listen, share, like, comment on this. See how our conversation, me and Martha, see how it applies to you in your life. Enjoy. Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of our Back to Life podcast. I am excited today to have a wonderful lady that I think you're going to get tremendous value out of. Her name is Martha Boston. And as you heard in the intro, I met her many, many years ago. And we didn't stay in touch too much. And as I'm looking for podcast guests, I came across her because I get some emails from her. And I thought, man, what a great guest. So Martha, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, I'm really happy to be here. And it's great to see you again, Danny.
Yeah, likewise. So, you know, your work is a lot about heart. When people ask you, what do you do? You know how much so many people say, what do you do for a living? How do you answer that?
I answer it any number of ways, depending on who I'm talking to. Sure. But talking to you, what I would say is I help people bring more connection to their own hearts and heart to their work in the world, their presence in the world, their relationships. And by heart, I don't mean romantic or emotional kind of heart. I mean the internal wisdom and courage and acceptance and loving that's not clingy. That's what I want more of in my life, and the people I work with want more of that too.
Right. Yeah, I think everybody wants more of that for sure when I talk to people.
I think we could use it.
Oh, amen to that, Martha. Amen to that. So when you talk about heart, then it's not that muscle in our body that weighs a pound or 10 ounces, or whatever it is. Heart is more of an energy. Is that what you think?
I think heart has the word that I use, heart, that essence. I would call it more consciousness than energy, but I guess energy is part of that. I think it's what some people would call their spirit, or others might call their soul, or others might even call God or some aspect of God. But really what it is, or your higher self, or your inner guide, or all kinds of things. Really, it's just that place that knows that you know. Right. And knows, actually, I think, what's for my highest good in the situation. You know, some people call that conscience, but that has kind of a moralistic sense to it. And I think more than that, it's just that really quiet little voice inside that never bangs you over the head, but just nudges. And then when you ignore it, it gets quieter, but it'll still nudge you.
It will still nudge. So you've done a lot of work over the years from a leadership perspective, right? So you're working primarily with leaders to get them to connect to their heart.
I've done a lot of that. I would say over my whole career, and especially now, my work is primarily with individuals, which might be individuals in groups who are seeking leadership of themselves more than leadership in the world. Right.
That's cool. So if somebody comes to work with you and they say, okay, I like what Martha has to say here, Where do you get started? I mean, how would even somebody know that, you know what, I need to connect more with my heart? What are some signs for people out there in the world where it might be the proverbial red flag?
Wow, that's a really good question. Well, there's a wide range, but I would say certainly for a lot of people, they've had some sudden something that's happened in their life and it kind of knocked them off balance.
Okay.
And they're recognizing, I need to really reset.
Mm-hmm.
I would say most people find themselves, they might not put it in these terms, but I would say more reactive to the world than they would like to be.
Okay.
Their emotional and mental reactions to the people around them or the things that are happening or politics or world conditions or whatever are kind of out of sync with what feels good inside.
Got it. So people have that internal barometer, and there's just if we put it on the scale of joy, 1 to 10, right? Joy, happiness, contentment, fulfillment, whichever word we want to use. If they had to go and plot themselves on that, they're probably on the lower half.
I would say people on the lower half might want to be going to therapy. But,
okay. Yeah.
People
I've certainly been on the lower half, and yes, therapy is good.
So have I.
That was good for me. Psychologists and priests and anybody that could
exactly.
Yeah, I
would say most of the people I work with are basically doing pretty well in their lives.
Right.
But they're enlightened enough to know that they could always do better. Okay. And so they're looking for enhancement, not for a fix.
Got it. How do I kind of get back to that spot? Can you think of any stories of somebody that you've worked with where you had a pretty strong transformation, or that person did through your, through your influence, through your your heart?
I would say a lot of the work that I do in groups. I mean, it's with individual people, but in groups. And a lot of it has been in the context of what's typically called experiential learning.
Right.
But what it means is I get people together in a setting where the setting kind of gets them out of their comfort zone.
Got it.
And so then their reactions show up and then I can work with them. So here's just a really simple example.
Yeah.
I had a woman on a sailboat. Actually, I've had this happen several times, but I had a woman on a sailboat. We were down in the Caribbean for a week, and that's a thing that I do periodically.
Right.
And she was at the helm. She was not a sailor. And she was at the helm, and we told her to aim the boat toward a particular little island. And the waves were pretty high. They weren't particularly dangerous, but they were high.
Yeah.
And so, of course, as she sailed toward that, the waves would come and move the boat around, and the boat would go this way or this way.
Right.
And she would oversteer to correct, and then we'd be doing that.
Sure.
So, and she was
sounds
terrified.
like life in some regards.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I put him on a sailboat.
Yeah, right.
Life magnified. And she was terrified. And I stopped her and I said, "Tell me, what are you focusing on?" She said, "Keeping the boat going." And I said, "But where are you going?" And she said, "Well, toward that island." And I said, "Then what are you focusing on?" She said, "Well, that wave." And I said, "Honey, how is that like your life?" And she just went, "Oh my gosh.
Really?
I lived my whole life looking at the obstacles that are coming my way and letting them throw me off."
Right.
And then what we worked with her on is using the motion of the wave to get where she wants to go rather than fighting it.
Got it.
That was, probably 15 years ago. And she's a friend of mine, and I see her use this all the time. She still talks about it
now.
constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not the elimination of the obstacles, right? It's just to make sure that you don't put all your energy on them.
Yeah. Good luck trying to eliminate them.
Yeah. I mean, you got to deal with them, right?
Yeah. And in fact, I think that's what's life's for is we get obstacles, and if we want to be moving forward, then we use them.
Sure.
The old thing about stepping stones but yeah. So,
right.
You don't try to get rid of them, but you may go around them. You may need to do that.
Right.
You may need to ignore them or turn around. But any way you approach them, you use them for you, not against you.
Right.
Whether that obstacle is a wave or a person giving you feedback, or a person ignoring you, or your neighbor not keeping their yard up, or whatever it is.
Right. Right. Yeah. You know, and you and I talked before we did the podcast. That fourth book I put out, Taking the Shit Out of the Show, was really just that. Not, the shit show is those challenges that we have in life. And there's brutal facts very present many times. And, taking the proverbial shit out is not eliminating them, those challenges, those waves, but rather how do we deal with them? And as I'm on the doorstep of 60, that's certainly hitting me over the head so much more in life, right?
Yeah, and I've passed the doorstep of 70 several times, and
and you look amazing.
Oh, thank you. But if I do, it's because I do have that attitude about life of. Right. In fact, what I've learned to do is when shit happens,
yes,
I say to myself, I know there's a reason for this. I know there's a way to use this. I don't know what it is yet.
Yeah.
But I know it's coming. Yeah. And that gets me through everything because I keep looking for the way.
Yeah. Yeah. I was talking actually last night. It was with one of my brothers and we just I got 6 brothers, different conversations. And we were just talking about that, in our faith, oftentimes the term is cross to bear. Yeah. This difficulty is my cross to bear. And I had a good conversation around that, kind of interesting.
Well, it's an interesting thing because I think a lot of people think of cross to bear completely as a burden.
Right.
And I like to see it more as, it may be going too far to call it an opportunity, but there's always a blessing in it in disguise.
Yeah.
And so, if you do have a cross to bear, rather than having to pick it up, you get to pick it up.
Yeah.
You get to pick it up and carry it through to transformation.
Yeah. Yeah. And surround yourself with some really good, strong people that are going to help you on that, right?
Yeah. Ones who kind of see it that way, or some variation on that theme.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so important. So what would you say to somebody, in terms of connecting with their heart? Let's kind of get into some situations that people might be dealing with. What if somebody lost a loved one recently? A child, a father, mother, a spouse or partner. What would you say to them? And I know every situation is different, but if somebody's out there listening, what are a couple of things that they might want to start to experiment with to kind of move through that pain of loss?
Well, the first thing I would say is don't try to avoid the grief.
Right.
The grief is absolutely essential.
Yeah.
And, one thing one of my teachers said years ago, which has gotten me through a lot of deaths of people close to me, is when you're missing them, that's really the experience of their presence and loving them. So, if I think of
say that again, Martha, when you're missing them.
When you're missing them,
right,
it's the experience of, you've got them present with you right there.
Yeah. I love that.
And so it's a loving thing.
Right.
And then what you do with that presence,
right,
I think is what makes all the difference. I'm going to say something now I haven't thought out before, so I may not even believe this.
That's cool. That's just us. The spirit of God.
But that is that if they are present with me and I choose to go into the agony about that, I'm not sure that's a whole lot different than when they were alive and they were with me and I was mad at them for a way they were being or acting. It's like not being in acceptance of who they are in that moment.
Yeah.
So I do believe this.
Yeah.
So if I'm missing, a friend of mine who died not too long ago, I can think, why are you dead and how am I going to be after this? And there's a space for that.
Yes.
But right alongside it and coming in and taking up more space is, you're here in my heart right now. And, you are in the formless form you are.
Yeah.
And, hopefully I will treat them like that when they're alive too.
Right. So it's really that perspective of, and I always talk to people too, just to tell them, I say, when they do pass away, because I had an interesting experience where I was dead and came back. And I know that there's something when our body stops. And I believe that the line between here and there is very, very fine. And then, as you said, that spirit of the past person, that energy, that soul is very much available. And that's why I offer to people, I say, listen, just slow down from time to time. If you're crying, that's okay. Just try to shift and see if you can make that connection, I guess, with heart that you and I are talking about. But I guess then it's really, what do they do with it, as you said?
Yeah, which is probably the question in all of life.
Right.
Life is about what you do with it, not what it does with you or to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Including take you away.
Yes, absolutely. Any other stories of people that you heard of that have, your work has helped them move through a difficult time?
Mainly the stories I hear aren't so much stories as just when the aha happens, and then later, and I'm big on making ahas be integrated, not just leave them, but later when we check back in and you're using it. So, people who've lost a job, gone right to the edge and of, being okay, and then finding a totally different way of living that actually served them a whole lot better. May not have looked the way egos like it to look in the world, but certainly worked in a way that served their soul.
Yeah. Yeah. What about coming out of this period of our life that we call COVID?
Whoa.
The past 2 years, I know, for me, first year was fine. I did a lot of virtual work and it was good. And then people go, I don't want to be on another freaking Zoom call forever. And, I definitely had some things in life. My wife and I moved and, it was cool. We got closer to home. My brother-in-law is living with ALS and, I lost somebody and it's just, and the business was slowing down. So I definitely was in a funk for a little bit. What do you offer to people as we, let's trust that we come out of this thing called COVID? What should we be thinking about that?
Well, I'm going to hit this in a couple of different ways.
Great.
One is I think we probably aren't well served to think about coming out of COVID because we may not.
Right.
It may be something that in various forms is with us for a long time. So I think what may be more useful is to think about as we are constantly evolving socially.
Yes.
What do I need? And with that, when I work with people, I wrote something recently that I came upon the phrase, and I really love the phrase, is walking away from something. In this case, I was talking about walking away from an attachment, walking away from it by walking toward your heart. So what I invite people to do in any work that I'm doing with them is to, identify whatever it is that's off, seems off to them. But rather than just really going over and why did that happen and da, is to just say, and I learned this phrase from Byron Katie, who would you be without that?
Yeah.
And instantly people describe their hearts. And that's where I take off from Katie and go a little further, which is that you described. And people say things like, oh man, I'd be so peaceful, I'd be free, So those are the qualities of your heart.
Sure.
So you don't have to make that up as who you would be, because you already are. You already knew it. Right. So how can you support yourself, remind yourself to keep coming back to this place?
Yeah, that's a great.
And then play that out.
Yeah, who would I be without that? I've certainly heard it over the years, and thanks for that wonderful reminder. It almost gives you permission to let it go and realize that you do have the power to let that go, whatever it is. And for me, I think it gives you a shot of that inspiration, right? Which is that in spirit, that good energy that says, okay, now I can direct this energy, my focus towards something. How important, when you were talking about your friend that was on the boat and she's going towards the island, in my work and I guess in your work, I think, and certainly in our friend David Allen's work over the years, the higher levels, the vision, really the island that the boat was going for. How important is it for people, as we sit here in February right now, as we record this, for them to have a pretty good, clear image, vision, picture of what they want for the next 10 or 11 months in all those areas of their life? Do you work with that with them?
I'm going to answer that with a very cautious, very important. And the reason I'm cautious about it is that when most people think of a vision or a goal or any of those things along the continuum,
sure,
they think completely of the outer. It's in the sense of, I want my business to net this much money and have this many clients and these many employees and all of that kind of stuff.
Right.
Without taking into account of, how does that line up with me inwardly? How does that serve me? What does my heart want?
Right.
So if I'm working with somebody who already has pretty conscious access to their heart, we'll just go right there.
Right.
If I'm working with somebody who's kind of caught up in the out there, I will simply say, okay, so you want your business to net X.
Right.
So that what? And they'll say something like, so that I can expand into other markets, and so that, and now start bringing it more inward. What will that do for you if you can expand into other markets? Well, I'll have more prestige in the community. And if you have more prestige in the community, what does that do for you?
Right.
Oh, well, it makes me feel successful.
Right.
And why do you need to feel successful?
Right.
Because I want to feel of value.
Right.
Why do you want to feel of value? What would that be like for you? Well, then I would know that I'm worthwhile. And at some point, people just hit the bottom line. And I just heard it in your voice with your uh-huhs as we went down. It gets softer and deeper and more settled as we go. And then there you are, right there in your heart.
Right.
And so then if you go for what your heart wants, I want to feel worthy, then you can look at, so how do I do that through my business? And then the goal may be, I want to net X so that I can set aside this amount to build a school in Haiti or whatever it is.
Right. So then it's in service to others.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Which is the key for our heart. Yeah. How does it then, the heart, this strong connection to it? And as you were talking, I was thinking of an organization, that Heart Math Institute. I think it's up in the Pacific Northwest. I've come across years ago, where they talk about that heart, the science and the coherence of our breath and our heart. And how does this notion of heart that you work with so wonderfully with people, how does that support not so much just, the vision or the goal or whatever, but the daily action?
Well,
my focus, my to-do list. Oh my God, I don't feel like getting my ass out of bed today. I feel depressed or tired. How do we tap in maybe to say, okay, let me go get some things done through the energy of our heart?
Now, you're reminding me of a story we used to use in business training years and years ago about, I think it was Toyota. It was some Japanese company, and they were working with vision. And I can't remember what the phrase was, but their mission was to have, let's call it 50% of the market in 50 countries or something like that. I'm sure that's not what it was, but so let's say that was the 50-50 thing.
Right. Definitely
wrong numbers. But so they trained everybody in the company to see how their job supported that vision. So you could go onto the plant floor and find the janitor who cleaned the floor and say, so how do you support the 50-50 project? And they could tell you, well, because if I don't get this dust up, then it impacts these machines, and these machines won't function as well, and that cuts down on productivity and so on and so forth.
Okay.
On the personal level, it's the same thing. If my daily work, if I understand how that feeds my desire to be of service in a particular way, then getting out of bed's a lot easier. I may not want to get out of bed and install the new operating system on my computer, but
Yeah.
I will do so much better, and it'll be so much easier to get things done after I've done that. So I get up out of bed and do it.
Right. Right. So heart, this energy, this heart, it's working well. It's working at its optimal performance when it's directed towards others, service, love, support.
Yeah. And I am, I don't know that much about the heart math, all of that.
Right.
But I do know that people I know, and myself definitely included, I am healthier. I'm functioning better when I'm led by heart. Way better.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. I saw on your website where it says, heart, the place from which life is led. I love that. What does that mean?
Well, I think to me, it means just what we've been talking about, that's the touch point that I go to in decision making when I'm being smart. That, I just check, does that line up with who I am? Not who I am in the world, but who I am here in my heart, my soul, my spirit. And if it doesn't, I just don't do it.
Right.
Except when I'm being stupid.
Yeah. Me too. I'll raise my hand on that one. So I love that. And I'm with you on that. And I certainly strive to do that, to get, to sit in my heart, I guess, to be in my heart more, my soul, my spirit. What if people are not there right now? And as you said, they realize that they're not. What are some things? Is that better access through silence, through meditation, through journaling? Not where the therapy is needed, beyond that.
Yeah.
If somebody listening really feels that they need significant help, then sure, you and I are both say, listen, go find somebody that can help you.
Yeah.
But for other people to go, yeah, you know what, Martha, I get it. And I feel like I'm kind of off. I don't even know who I am, in my core and my essence. What should I do? Well,
if a lot of people who are that off in their core and their essence have a really hard time meditating. They just can't hold the focus. Of course, other people who are in line with their hearts have trouble meditating too. So,
yeah, right.
Wherever a person is, they have some way of accessing their heart, whether they want to call it that or not.
Right.
So, a friend of mine who is a kind of a hardcore jock, tough out there kind of guy, and nothing's ever serious except business, has a newborn baby. And so, for him, whenever he talks about that baby, everything softens.
Yeah.
And so, I could say to him, like, okay, I get all this. And right now, the father of that child, touch into that place where she softens you so much. And you would do anything in the world to take care of her. And in fact, you know how to take care of her from that place.
Yeah.
Now, how can you use that place for this decision you're about to make? So everybody has access to it.
Yeah. I think it's great when you talk newborn babies, man. I think that's a freaking high-speed highway right to the heart when you hold on them, and they look at you or they fall asleep in your arms. Yeah, I'm a big advocate of that. So accessing the heart, then, are there daily rituals that you do? I guess you want to get to the point, all of us, where you just lead your life from your heart. It's just, you're wired that way now. You've grown, you've evolved into that. Or, you got to go to the gym and work on your muscles. How do we work on that energy of the heart? Are there things that people should do every day, habits or things like that?
Sure. And I would say the main habit would be whatever brings you more in touch with your heart. If it's staring into the baby's eyes and letting your heart melt, do that.
Right.
Or a picture.
Right.
Or a piece of music. And that's if you don't have access to anything else like meditation. If you know how to meditate without beating yourself up for having a wandering mind.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that's the most counterproductive thing I can think of.
The monkey mind, right? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But, actually the whole mindfulness thing, it's just amazing to me how it's become so mainstream.
Yes.
But it is what we do to shut off all of the ego self and the craziness, is just observe. So, the way that I talk to people about meditation, for example, is your mind is going to wander. So observe the wandering. It's not, you don't have to get into the thought. You notice the thought. And then you notice your energy going into the thought. You don't try to change it. Just be aware of it. Eckhart Tolle says the moment you realize that you're not present, you are present.
Right.
And I think that says it in a nutshell. So simple observation.
Yes. The moment you realize you're not present, you're present. I love that.
Isn't that great?
Oh, it is. It is. Yeah. I often offer to people that for me, when I get there, in a meditation, it's just, I always want to get to realize and reinforce that I'm not my thoughts.
Yeah.
I'm the thinker of them. And that therein lies our ability to grow, right? And make different thoughts in those. And that's why people say, I don't have time to meditate. I've got a high powered job, or I'm out in the world and everything else. And I talk to them that meditation trains you, as you said, to have that awareness. So in that little spot between input and response, right? That's where you're going to grow. That's where you're going to make a different thought, a different choice. You're going to lead differently. And meditation, I believe, trains that, rather than we're just out there in the world and it's just going, automatic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I love, as a matter of fact, I'm probably, when we're finished here, going to drop in for a little bit of stillness for sure.
Yeah. And it to me, it's like before I start the day, and I have in my life, I've gone through enormous periods, but I had a very dedicated time and space and everything for meditation. These days, it's I don't get out of bed until I've kind of tuned in and I can sense that I'm in alignment.
Right.
And, sometimes that's a minute, sometimes it's longer than that.
Yeah, I've been there as well. I try to do that same thing. For me, it's some prayers, and it's really just, some breathing and thinking about the day and getting to the point where, I'll talk about an acronym HUT, HUT, hold useful thoughts, right? Are the thoughts that I'm holding right now useful for me to go do and be, what I need to do and who I need to be today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if they're not, allow them to go. Don't try to banish them. Because in meditation, as in anything, I sense that when you try to banish something or control it, you're doing just the opposite of being still and mindful, and in presence.
Yeah.
So, it may start with just observing the unuseful thought, but not trying to banish it, just observing it, then observing the effect it has on you. And, then focusing on your breathing. I mean, if people do nothing else, I think, to still themselves, just take a minute, if no more, and just observe your breathing without trying to change it.
Right.
But then you're very likely to observe that it has changed.
Right.
Just through the observation.
Yeah. Just come back to breath.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's so important. You spoke about waves earlier, and I know you spent a lot of time on the water. And it's, I always recall, when we go surfing or whatever, and you're out, if the waves are significant, at my age, I don't go out too significant anymore. Although, if you wipe out or you're caught inside and you're paddling back out, when that wave's got you and it's rinsing you around, right? Like our thoughts, the best thing is just to go limp in the water. When people told me that, just go limp and then next thing you know, you're popping up. But when you're struggling and fighting, you're using your breath more, and, anxiety's coming in versus just to go, all right, let me just chill for a moment and then I'll be where I need to be.
It's an incredible metaphor. And when we lived down in the islands, I did a lot of free diving. And as I would try to go deeper, I'd start out by fighting to go deeper, which of course uses up my breath.
Sure.
Yeah.
So
if you just relax.
Yeah.
Then I discovered that if I do a few moments of meditation before I dive, then I'm far better down the road.
Yeah. No, I think that meditation is key anywhere. Our daughter's a runner. college runner, and I always try to get her, just before the race, just drop in for a few minutes. You know what I mean? Just clear that head, be present, and go run. What's the deepest you ever free dived? Free dove. What's the right English?
I think it's free dived.
Free dive.
I got down to.
Yeah, right.
I got down to almost 60 feet.
Wow.
My husband can go almost 100 feet, but he swims around looking for fish while he's doing that. For me, if I'm, trying to do depth, it's down and up.
Right. So if you would go down 60 feet, which you have, how long does that take you down and back up?
Oh, I have no idea.
Yeah,
one breath.
One breath. I'm thinking, wow. And Peter's going 100. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I could use that breath when I'm under the wave, right?
Right. And, it's just like, he may have amazing lungs, but he mainly just has he's very, very aware of his breath and how to use it. And there's technique and everything too.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure.
Most of my free diving was more like in the 20, 30, sometimes 40 feet because I wanted to find the fish.
Yeah, I hear you. Martha, before we wrap it up, and I'll ask, for your 2 or 3 things that you would just, kind of a summary of our conversation, to remind people of 2 or 3 things that they should really be aware of and maybe, start to work on and incorporate into their day. Before we do that, where would somebody go ahead and find more about you and, your workshops and your coaching and more about Martha?
I have a website, and the name of it is captainscourageous.net. And Captains Courageous is, it's the name of a book and a movie and all of that. But if it's translated from Old French, it means leaders of heart. And for me, that's a leadership of yourself first. So it's captainscourageous.net.
Okay.
If you go to .com, you won't find me, but .net, you can think of the netting on the boat.
Oh, cool. I like it. Anywhere else? I'm sure if they search it, they'd find different videos maybe of you talking.
There's some videos on there. There's some on YouTube, but I think those are also on the website.
Great.
And, on Sunday mornings, I do a gathering called Moments of Connection on Zoom, where we just get together, go into the heart, and then connect hearts with each other. And that's really sweet.
And that's Sunday mornings?
Sunday mornings at 11 Eastern.
And is that a membership?
No.
Is that open to anybody?
It's just a service.
Oh, okay,
it's
cool.
free to anybody who's willing to come with their heart open.
Right. Cool. And you can find out more about that on your website.
On the website.
Oh, great. Yeah, I'm going to have to jump into 1 or 2 of them. That would be wonderful.
and tomorrow morning, I've got a new blog post coming out that I'm really excited about. And if people want to go onto the website and sign up for the, they can see it on there, but also I have a subscription to a newsletter, free.
Great.
And it'll tell you when other stuff. But this one is about being special or being ordinary. And, most of us would not dream of wanting to be ordinary, but a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about this morning is about the most ordinary thing in the world, which is the human heart, soul, spirit. Yeah.
I'll look forward to that one. I always enjoy your insight. So Martha, and before we head out, thank you again. It's been wonderful. I'm glad that however we came together, the spirit or whatever, I'm thankful for that. If you're having a cup of coffee or a glass of wine or whatever with somebody, and you're never going to see them again, you're both off into the question marks of life, the days that we have left. And they say, Martha, cool. What are a couple things that I should really do to, live with joy, live with fulfillment, resilience, and get into my heart? What would you offer them as kind of a parting thought?
I would say first, just consider that you don't have to be at the effect of life, that your response to life is how you experience it. And you have a choice about that, how you respond to what happens. And if you want to make a choice that serves you on all levels, you might want to start with choosing from your heart. And the way you know your heart is the place inside you that feels soft and loving and accepting. And all you need to do is think of something that brings some experience in your life that brings that close to you, where you have wisdom that's beyond your mind and your teaching, and go to that place and make your decisions from there.
I like it. Well said. Well said. Well, Martha, listen, thank you again so very much. I wish you and Peter all the best in the year ahead. And everybody out there, thanks a lot for joining in. If you want to comment, share, like this, and certainly go out and, go to Martha's website and find out more about her and maybe get yourself on that free newsletter just to drop some seeds of inspiration for you in your life. So until next time, everybody, when you come back to life, make sure that you're looking to answer those two questions. What am I up to creating? And how am I going about doing it? We'll see you next time. Thanks. Well, I'm sure you enjoyed that conversation with Martha Boston, as I said you would. A couple of things that were really important from that conversation that I took away. Number one was her definition of heart. And she calls it spirit, soul, consciousness. It's that interconnection that we have with ourselves that goes beyond being human. So I think it's more of that human spirit that is hardly human. I really like to listen to her talk about that and think about how I connect with that myself. I also liked her endorsement and encouragement for meditation. Those of you that meditate know the power of it. Those of you that don't meditate, I would strongly encourage you to start experimenting with it. And those of you that maybe have meditated in the past, however you have judgment about yourself that says, I don't know how to do this, my mind can't stop, it's not working. It is working. That's the whole thing for meditation. Sit, let your thoughts come by, see them, and then let them go. Come back to your breath. And that really helps us to train ourselves so that we're in the proverbial heat of the battle in life and we're having conversations with people where we have an opportunity to act on things. It allows us just to be a little more aware and maybe have a slight pause where we can see things differently and maybe consider some other options. So I thought that was great. And I really love the story that she told about that woman who was going towards her goal, but was more focused on the obstacles and the waves. I know many times I've let those obstacles kind of hijack my focus and my energy. And it's really about, as Martha said, dealing with them and using them, right? Moving through them, moving around them, using them to continue moving towards your goals and towards your vision. So until next time, I wish you all the best, and I'd like for you to comment and subscribe to this podcast, share it with somebody else who you think needs to get a little bit more in connection with their heart. Have a good one. Peace.